My wealthy parents plotted my Christmas humiliation with job offers, charts, and insults to force me into their corporate world. So I walked away, built a six-figure business from scratch, and returned only when their perfect charity gala collapsed, making them pay top dollar for my work. Sup, Reddit. My family thought they could plan my entire life without asking me once. So I walked away, built my own thing, and didn't look back. But turns out, they weren't done trying to control the story. Before I get into what happened, let me start at the beginning. My name's Ben Harper. I'm 29, live in Brooklyn, run a small jewelry business I started after college. Not the fake kind of business where you make a few Etsy sales and call yourself an entrepreneur. This is legit. I've got 3 boutiques that carry my stuff, regular custom orders, even a part-time assistant now. Pays the bills, keeps the lights on. My family doesn't see it that way. The first time I figured out how things really worked in my house, I was 14. That spring, I won first place in a regional art contest. Big deal to me. I'd stayed up 3 nights straight finishing that painting, some huge thing of clouds over a highway. The ceremony was on a Wednesday night in the school auditorium. Mom told me Dad couldn't make it because of important meetings, but we'd celebrate after. We didn't. We went out for ice cream, just me, Mom, and my sister Laura. Back home, Dad was in his study with the door closed. I remember standing in the hall holding the certificate, hearing him on the phone talking about my brother Mark getting into some honors math program. No one asked about the art thing. I stuck the ribbon on my bedroom wall myself. It went like that for years. 16th birthday, Mark got car keys. I got a long talk about practical choices. That Christmas, I made everyone these wood-burned coasters in shop class. Laura swapped them for gift cards before the relatives showed up, so people wouldn't think we were cheap. By college, I'd stopped expecting anything different. So yeah, driving into Greenwich the week before Christmas at 29, I wasn't shocked when the house looked like something from a magazine. White lights on every roofline, wreaths perfect enough for a catalog, driveway already packed with shiny SUVs. My old Subaru looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. I parked off to the side and grabbed my duffel. The cold bit through my jacket on the short walk up. Mom opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been watching. "Ben," she said, hugging me quick. Then her eyes went straight to my boots, the jacket, the hair I hadn't bothered to cut since summer. "We have guests tonight. Please wear something proper." She handed me a long garment bag. I nodded, confused. "Thanks? It might need hemming," she said, already turning toward the kitchen. Inside smelled like pine cleaner and whatever the caterers were prepping. Everything gleamed. Marble counters, crystal bowls of ornaments, floors you could eat off. Dad came out from his study long enough to shake my hand and ask how traffic was on I-95, not how I was doing. Then he disappeared again. Upstairs, I found my old room already half filled with boxes. Mom had shoved my stuff into the smallest guest room at the far end. "Using your room for storage this year," she called from the hall when she saw my face. "Bethany's bringing the twins." I dropped my duffel on the bed. The comforter still had a price tag on it. Downstairs, Laura was leaning against the counter scrolling her phone when I walked in. "Still doing the trinket thing?" she said loud enough for the cousin next to her to hear. "It's jewelry," I said. She smirked. "Right." Mark walked in, all suit and confidence, and handed his keys to the maid. Then he looked out the window. "Is that your Subaru in the main drive?" "Yeah," I said. He turned to the maid. "Can you move it to the side? Guests will need the front spots." I didn't say anything. Unpacking later, I kept seeing pieces of old life crammed in with the new decor. My sketchbooks in a plastic bin labeled MISC. A mug from some middle school trip stuck between 2 lamps. The wall where my ribbon used to hang painted over like it was never there. Dinner that night was catered like always. Perfect salmon, perfect salads, long table set like a wedding reception. I ended up near Dad, Mark, and 2 guys from the country club. Someone asked what I was doing these days. I started to say a boutique in Brooklyn had sold out my latest pieces. Mark cut in with a story about some client merger he was working on. Big numbers, everyone nodding along. Dad leaned in, interested, asked questions, laughed at the right spots. By the time the story wrapped, the conversation had jumped to golf trips. No one came back to me. I just kept eating. After dessert, Mom brought me the garment bag again. "Try this on tonight," she said, "in case the tailor needs time." I asked what it was for. "Just something nice to wear," she said, already talking to someone else. The fabric inside looked expensive. Navy, thin stripes, way fancier than anything I owned. Later I stepped outside, needed air. The lights along the roof buzzed faintly. Inside, laughter moved room to room like warm air I couldn't quite reach. It hit me then how nothing in that house ever changed. Same perfect decorations, same conversations about golf and finance, same feeling like I was visiting someone else's family instead of my own. I shoved my hands in my jacket and stayed out there until I couldn't feel my fingers. The next afternoon, I was upstairs sorting through some old sketches I'd brought along, trying to decide if I should show Dad the new cuff design I'd been working on. It was clean, modern, simple silver piece with a small inlay. I thought maybe he'd like it if he actually saw what I was making these days, instead of imagining craft fair keychains. I went downstairs toward his study. The door was half open. That's when I heard my name. I stopped. Dad's voice. We need to be firm about this. He's nearly 30. No plan, no structure, drifting. Another voice I didn't recognize said, if you want me to go over the numbers at dinner, I'll need some details. Starting salary for the firm, benefits, projected growth if he joins. I stayed still, just outside the doorway. Mom. We wanted to feel supportive, Stephen. Not like an attack. He's sensitive. Laura. He overreacts to everything. Always has. Mark. Look, I can open with some comparisons. Apartment that small in Brooklyn? He can't be clearing more than 35 tops. That's barely scraping by. I'll show him what entry-level associates make. He'll see the logic. Stephen, the advisor I guessed. A side-by-side. Income now versus income if he takes the job. Simple. Visual. My hands went cold. Dad again. We have a slot waiting for him. Marketing department. Safe, decent pay, solid future. All he has to do is say yes. Mom. The suit we gave him yesterday should work fine for the interview. Lawrence said he can meet him right after New Year's if we get this sorted. They planned a job interview for me. Never mentioned it. Just assumed I'd go along. Mark. We do it after the main course, when everyone's seated. He won't make a scene in front of the entire family. Laura. He might. You know how dramatic he can be? Dad. Then we make it clear. If he refuses, fine. But the safety nets end. We can't support this fantasy forever. Support? They hadn't paid a single bill for me since college. Stephen. Should I include lifestyle comparisons? Retirement projections? Dad. Keep it simple. The point is stability. Professionalism. Not jewelry hobby numbers. Mom lowered her voice like she was telling some secret. While dinner's happening, the staff can finish clearing his old bedroom for Bethany. He doesn't need it anymore. A pause. Then Laura. He still has those little trophies on the shelf in there. The art things. Cringe. Someone laughed. Not loud, just like air escaping. Mark. I'll handle the charts. He can't argue with numbers. Mom. And the whole family will be here. He'll see everyone agrees this is the right path. That's important. Dad. We can't have him drifting forever. It reflects badly. I couldn't feel my fingers. My stomach twisted like I'd swallowed something sharp. Nobody raised their voice. They sounded calm, practical, which somehow made it worse than if they'd been yelling. I backed away before anyone saw me. Upstairs, I packed the few things I'd brought. Just essentials. Laptop, charger, the cuff sample, a change of clothes. I left everything else in the room with the price-tagged comforter, including the navy pinstripe still zipped in its garment bag. On the way out, I told Maria, the housekeeper, that something came up and I might be back later. She nodded, kind as always, no questions. I drove until I hit a rest stop off the highway. Parked near the back, hands still shaking a little. Called Eli, my buddy. He picked up on the second ring. Hey man, you at the mansion yet? Yeah. I left. My voice cracked more than I wanted. What happened? I told him. The whole thing. The dinner plan, the job interview, clearing my room. All of it. He was quiet a second, then said, wow. But listen, you know your numbers don't lie. Last 2 months were your best ever, right? Yeah. You got that email from Oak and Stone? I told you they're interested. Did you answer them yet? I hadn't. It had been sitting starred in my inbox for a week because I couldn't decide if scaling up production was too much right now. Eli said, Ben, you're running a real business. Not their version of it, but real. Sales, growth, demand. You've done it without a dime from them. I opened my laptop right there in the car, pulled up my spreadsheet, 5 years of sales, the steady climb, last quarter already bigger than the one before it. Enough to pay rent, materials, part-time help, and still have profit. I stared at the numbers. All real. They'd never asked to see any of it, because facts didn't matter unless they fit the story they told about me. Eli said, come up to the shop tomorrow. We'll figure out the Oak and Stone thing. Don't let them wreck your head over this. Yeah, I said. Outside the windshield, cars came and went, brake lights glowing against the wet pavement. My phone buzzed with some family group text about dinner plans. I didn't open it. I closed the laptop and just sat there, the heating vents humming, wondering how many years they'd been planning my life without me noticing. But I woke up the next morning in my apartment back in Brooklyn. Bare walls, workbench in the corner, trays of unfinished pieces waiting for polish. Quiet except for the radiator knocking like it always did. The first thing I did was open my laptop, typed up a short letter to my parents, printed it, signed it, and dropped it off at the post office downstairs to send certified. It said I hadn't abandoned any of my things in my old room and would pick them up after the holidays. Listed what was there, journals, photos, early tools, so nobody could say they didn't know. I didn't bother writing anything personal, just the facts. Next, I opened the email from Oak and Stone, the one I'd been sitting on. They wanted a spring catalog order. Big one. Bigger than any I'd done before. Last week I told myself I needed time to think about scaling production. Now, after what happened, the decision felt easy. I typed out a reply accepting the offer and asked to set up a call about quantities, deadlines, and packaging specs. Hit send before I could overthink it. Then I texted Eli. He wrote back fast, "Come up to the lodge, 2 hours north, my uncle's place. We'll get the guys. You need a real Christmas, man." He started a group chat with everyone. Tom and Chris from college, Maya the photographer who'd shot my first product line, and Matt who built my website. Everybody said yes. Eli, cabin's got 4 bedrooms, wood stove, decent kitchen, bring whatever, we'll make it work. Tom, I'm bringing board games. Maya, I'll bring the camera. Snow pics for the website maybe. Chris, I got food covered. Real food, not tiny appetizers with names nobody can pronounce. Before packing, I laid out the jewelry pieces I'd made for my family weeks ago. Custom stuff I'd designed carefully. Bracelets with initials, pendants with birthstones, a pair of cufflinks for Dad, made from old silver coins I'd sourced off eBay. I boxed them up with handwritten notes for each person. Kept the words short. Made this for you. Thought you'd like it. Merry Christmas. No lectures. No explanations. Called a local delivery service that specialized in gift drop-offs. Paid extra to have everything delivered Christmas Eve. Same time I'd normally be arriving at the house. Let them open the boxes while eating their catered dinner. By noon, I'd thrown clothes in a duffel and packed my laptop, chargers, and a few tools I might need if Oak and Stone called while I was gone. The drive north started with traffic, then thinned out once the highway turned rural. Snow dusted the shoulders of the road. Bare trees stood in rows, gray against the sky. Every mile felt like the noise back in Greenwich was getting farther away. About 2 hours later, I turned down a narrow side road and saw the lodge sitting on a rise above a half-frozen creek. Big stone chimney, wood siding dark from weather, roof piled with snow. Smoke curled from the chimney already. Eli came out as I pulled up. "Place has heat," he said, grabbing my duffel. "But the stove works better." Inside smelled like pine and dust. High ceilings, rafters blackened from years of fires. Floors scuffed from boots. Kitchen small, but had everything we needed. Dented pots, mismatched mugs, a fridge humming like it was tired but trying. A pile of split wood sat by the stove. Someone had stacked blankets on the couch. An hour later, the others started arriving. Tom with a box of board games and a bag of bagels. Chris hauling grocery bags filled with pasta, sauce, bread, coffee. Maya carrying her camera bag and a tripod strapped to the side. Everyone dumped stuff on the counter, claimed rooms, started cooking like it was normal to meet here every December. Eli boiled pasta, while Chris chopped vegetables. Maya set her camera on the table to warm up from the cold. Tom tried to get the old radio working for music and gave up, so we used someone's phone speaker instead. Nobody asked about Greenwich. They knew, but nobody pushed. While the food cooked, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mom. 1 text, "Need final head count for dinner." Reply ASAP. No. Are you okay? No. Where are you? Just logistics. I set the phone face down on the table. Dinner at the lodge was spaghetti, salad, garlic bread from a bag. Paper plates because nobody wanted to do dishes. Afterward, Eli threw more wood in the stove until the room was too warm and everyone sat around in t-shirts. Chris suggested a trail walk the next day if the snow stayed light. Tom said he'd seen deer tracks behind the lodge last winter. Maya offered to bring the camera for product shots. The whole thing felt easy in a way that didn't need explaining. Before bed, I checked my email one last time. Oak and Stone had replied already. "Let's set up a call after the holidays. Excited to feature your work. Congrats again." I read it twice, shut the laptop, and actually believed it this time. The wind picked up outside. The stove cracked as the log settled. My phone buzzed again on the table, screen lighting the dark room. Another message from the family. I didn't open it. By evening, the lodge was warm enough that nobody needed coats inside. Tom and Chris were playing cards at the kitchen table. Maya had her camera gear spread out near the window, sorting lenses. Eli sat on the couch messing with the wood stove door, trying to keep the fire from smoking too much. My phone, face down on the counter, started buzzing. I checked the screen. Laura. I stepped into the hallway before answering. "Where are you?" she said right away. Background noise on her end. Voices, plates clinking. People are asking. "I'm not coming," I said. A pause. Then sharper. "What do you mean you're not coming? Everyone's here. Grandma's asking. Mom's freaking out. I'm spending Christmas somewhere else." She made this half laugh, half snort sound. "Do you even realize how bad this looks? You can't just not show up. People think something happened." "Something did happen," I said. "But tell whatever story you want. I'm sure you will." "Wow," she said, her voice flat now. Real mature. "I've got to go," I said. Before she could keep going, I hung up. 5 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. "Dad." I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called. I almost didn't answer. But then I figured dragging this out wouldn't help. "Ben?" Her voice was tight. "We need the final head count. The caterer." "I heard everything," I said. She stopped. "What?" "Yesterday. In the study. The dinner plan. The job interview hidden in the Christmas gift. Clearing my room while everyone watches you fix my life. I heard all of it." Silence for a beat. Then she said, "You misunderstood. We were trying to help. Help would have been asking me what I wanted, not plotting some public intervention like I'm 12. Her voice softened in that way she used when trying to end arguments. "This comes from love, Ben. We want you to have stability. A future. Love doesn't need an audience," I said. "It doesn't need charts at the dinner table. It doesn't clear my room while I'm sitting there pretending everything's fine." "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said quickly. "The whole family is here. Grandma flew in from Florida. People will notice. That's not my problem." She let out this sharp breath. "If you refuse to even show up, there will be consequences." "Your father?" "I've been paying my own rent since I graduated," I said, cutting her off. "My own bills. My own business expenses. If you'd asked about my life instead of planning it, you'd know that." "Don't talk to me like I'm the enemy," she snapped. "Then stop acting like one." She went quiet again, like she was recalculating. I said, "I'm not coming to any Christmas where I'm treated like a problem to fix. I'm done pretending that's normal." "You're making a mistake," she said finally. "Maybe," I said, "but it's mine to make." She tried one more time. "Just come tonight. We can talk privately before dinner. No surprises." I shook my head even though she couldn't see it. "No, I'm spending Christmas with people who actually know me." Before she could start again, I said, "Merry Christmas, Mom," and hung up. Back in the main room, the others had stopped their games and were looking my way. Not staring, just quiet like they knew something big had happened. Eli walked over, rested a hand on my shoulder. "Proud of you, man," he said simply, then went back to the couch like it was nothing. Nobody else asked for details. Maya started packing her lenses. Tom shuffled the deck for another round. Chris checked the pot on the stove. Normal sounds. No speeches. I sat at the small table near the window and opened my laptop. Pulled up the delivery confirmation emails for the family gifts. Everything scheduled for Christmas Eve, evening drop-off. The courier company would text me once each package was signed for. I added a note to the order. Deliver even if they say recipient unavailable. Leave with staff if needed. Outside the window, the snow had started again, small flakes drifting sideways in the wind. The trees along the ridge bent a little, then straightened. I closed the laptop and watched until my eyes hurt. The phone didn't buzz again after that. I figured they were back at the house spinning whatever story worked best. Maybe that I was sick. Maybe that I was ungrateful. Didn't really matter. For the first time in years, the noise wasn't in my head. It was somewhere else entirely. Eli stoked the fire one last time before bed. Chris set out breakfast stuff on the counter for the morning. Maya leaned her camera against the wall so it wouldn't fall if someone bumped the table. Nobody said much. I sent the final confirmation for the gift deliveries, shut my phone off, and left it on the kitchen counter. The wind outside picked up, rattling the shutters a little. I stretched out on the couch under one of the old blankets and listened to the wood popping in the stove. Quiet. The kind I didn't know I'd been missing until right then. The lodge was quiet when I got up. Just the soft creak of the stove cooling down and the wind brushing against the siding. After breakfast, we dragged in a small tree Eli had cut down from the ridge behind the lodge. It wasn't much. Crooked near the top, bare spots on one side. Perfect anyway. Tom had brought a box of plain wooden ornaments from the hardware store. Just flat shapes on thin strings. Stars, bells, circles. No glitter, no glass. We spread everything on the table with a couple of markers and a dull pocket knife. Maya started drawing patterns on hers. Chris burned the edges of a star with a lighter until it had this smoky outline. I carved a small bird out of one of the thicker pieces. Took my time with the wings, sanded the edges smooth, then bent a bit of wire into an open ring and fixed it so the bird looked like it was flying through. Hung it near the top branch where the sunlight hit it. Nobody said much while we worked, just the sound of the knife scraping wood and the stove ticking as it reheated. Around noon, we geared up for a trail walk. Snow still coming down but light, almost quiet the way it fell through the trees. Boots crunched over the frozen ground. Chris slipped once on a buried rock, swore loud enough to scare a squirrel, made everyone laugh. Maya kept stopping to snap photos. Branches heavy with snow, the creek cutting through ice, the lodge roofline against the pale sky. She asked if I'd bring some pieces outside later, so she could shoot product photos in natural light. Said winter backgrounds would look great for the website. Yeah, I told her. After lunch. Back at the lodge, I checked my phone for the first time all morning. 3 new texts from cousins. Dinner's weird without you. Grandma's not happy. I read them twice, handed the phone to Eli so he could see. He grinned, shook his head, passed it back. Half an hour later, the phone rang. Ben? It was Uncle Ray. Hey, I said. Listen, I want you to know I didn't agree with that dinner plan nonsense, he said right away. I told them it was a bad idea. Appreciate that, I said. He cleared his throat. When I told your grandfather I was going into architecture instead of the family firm, he didn't speak to me for 6 months. So I get it. The pressure, the expectations. Did he come around? I asked. Eventually, Ray said. But it took me standing my ground first. Proud of you for doing the same. We talked a few more minutes about nothing big. Weather, the lodge, how Grandma apparently demanded to know why no one told her I was doing well. Then he let me go. While we ate lunch, grilled cheese, soup from a can, the delivery company texted confirmation. All packages delivered. Signatures collected. I pictured the family opening those boxes around their perfect dining table. The cufflinks for Dad, the pendant for Mom, the bracelets for Laura and the cousins. Each one in a small black box with their initials stamped on the lid in silver foil. The notes tucked inside with my careful handwriting. No idea what they'd say about any of it. Didn't really matter. Late afternoon, another email came through. Oak and Stone. We'd like to increase the initial order by 30%. Also want to feature you in the spring promo campaign. Let us know if you can handle the volume. I read it twice before telling the others. Tom whooped loud enough to shake dust off the rafters. Chris banged a spoon against the table like a bell. Maya started listing shot ideas for the promo images. Close-ups, outdoor setups, maybe some process photos in the workshop. Eli just grinned. You'll need more machine time, he said. I can block out weekends at the shop for you. Matt, who'd come up late last night and was sitting by the stove now, nodded. I'll redo the landing page. Make it clean before the promo drops. None of it felt like empty talk. These were the people who'd hauled display racks for me at street fairs, who'd edited product photos at midnight, who'd bought the first pieces when nobody else cared. I opened my laptop right there at the table and wrote back to Oak and Stone. I can meet the volume. We'll send a full production schedule by next week. Please confirm packaging requirements and delivery timelines so we stay aligned. Kept it short, clear. Attached a rough timeline so they knew I was serious. Outside, the snow stopped near sunset. Sky went pale gold over the ridge. Maya took the cuff sample and one of the bracelets outside. Shot them on a flat rock dusted with snow while the light lasted. Showed me the screen after. Metal catching the sun. Snow blurred behind it. Looked like something from a real catalog. That night, we sat around the wood stove eating leftovers while the photos uploaded to Matt's laptop for the website. My phone buzzed once on the counter. Another text from a cousin. Grandma wore the bracelet all dinner. Said it was the only decent surprise this year. I didn't reply. Just smiled into my coffee and kept listening to the wood crackle. Sir, at the first week of January, I signed the lease on the bigger workshop. It used to be a printing place. Wide open space with concrete floors and big windows along one wall. Drafty, but sunlight hit the back corner most of the day, and it had room for 3 full workbenches, plus shelves for inventory. Eli came with me to move everything. My part-time assistant stayed at the studio handling online orders and customer emails, so nothing slipped while we moved. We hauled in my polishing station, soldering setup, the bins of silver and brass rods, the little trays of finished pieces ready for shipping. He helped bolt the main bench to the floor so it wouldn't wobble, then wired the new motor for the buffer wheel. It hummed for a minute, then smoked like it was burning toast. Cheap part, Eli said, killing the switch. I'll get you a better one this weekend. While he fiddled with it, I labeled plastic bins for chains, clasps, polishing cloths. Matt stopped by with his laptop to test Wi-Fi for the store updates. Maya leaned pieces against white cardboard near the windows for photos, while Chris taped cardboard over a drafty seam near the back door. By the end of the day, the place looked like it belonged to someone who knew what he was doing. 2 days later, a local magazine ran a short article called 5 Makers to Watch This Year. My name was fourth on the list, right between a ceramicist from Queens and a leather bag company out of Jersey. Orders bumped up the same day. Not crazy numbers, but enough that I had to add a lead time note on the website, so people didn't expect overnight shipping. Matt changed the banner on the site to Made to Order, 2-week turnaround. Clear and simple. I spent the next few mornings answering emails between hammering out bracelet blanks and cutting chain lengths. No speeches about growth or destiny. Just work stacked on work. Family stuff reached me sideways. A cousin sent a screenshot from Facebook where mom had commented on some church friend's post. Ben couldn't make Christmas because of a client emergency. We missed him terribly. No mention of job charts or interventions or clearing my room for Bethany's kids. Dad emailed me a spreadsheet. Subject line, concerned about your long-term stability. The attachment had tabs labeled overhead projection and market fluctuation. He'd built this whole model showing my likely trajectory ending in failure inside 8 months unless I found traditional employment. I wrote back 3 lines. Appreciate the concern. Business is fine. Fully handling expenses on my own. Hope the new year's off to a good start for you and mom. Didn't attach any of my numbers. Laura didn't say anything at all. Not a text, not an email. Mark called one evening while I was finishing a batch of pendants. He started with small talk, then said, "How do you handle inventory risk? Like when orders jump suddenly? Doesn't cash flow get messy?" "Sometimes," I said, "but you forecast materials the same way you forecast demand. Week by week, not year by year." He was quiet a second. "My department blew a budget projection last quarter. Big client not happy. I think I underestimated how fast things can change." I told him about setting payment timelines with wholesale clients, about deposits before production, so you're not carrying all the risk yourself. Nothing fancy, just practical stuff. Learned the hard way. He asked questions like he actually wanted to know the answers. Mid-January, I scheduled the pickup at the family house for my old things. Maria met me at the door. "Your mother's busy," she said, which I guessed was true in the way people mean it when they don't want to be somewhere. Boxes from my room sat stacked in the hallway. Journals, high school sketchbooks, a chipped ceramic cup I'd made in 8th grade art class. Maria leaned close. "They tried to donate your old tools," she whispered. "I put them aside so you could decide." It was after the certified letter I'd sent in December. I looked through the box she'd saved. Pliers with worn grips, a tiny anvil I'd bought at a flea market sophomore year, the first soldering iron I ever owned. "Thanks," I said. "Really?" She shrugged. Seemed like they mattered. I left her a small bag before I went. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a leaf, simple but polished smooth, on a plain chain. With it, a handwritten note. "For everything you didn't have to do, but did anyway. Thank you." She didn't open it while I was there. Just smiled and said to drive safe. Back at the workshop that night, I lined up the spring collection pieces on the main bench. Rings on one tray, bracelets on another, pendants catching the last light through the window. No audience, no commentary. Just metal, tools, and the steady scrape of a file shaping edges, smooth for tomorrow's polishing. The new motor arrived from Eli the next day. By the end of the month, I'd shipped the first half of Oakenstone's order, updated the store inventory, and blocked out February production on a calendar tacked to the wall. Orders kept coming, but steady enough I could handle them. For the first time since the mess in December, things felt level. Not fixed, not perfect, just level. By early spring, the workshop felt like it had always been mine. Calendar on the wall full of shipping dates, trays lined with polished orders, laptop open to a steady stream of emails instead of the empty inbox I'd started with years ago. Every surface smelled like metal dust and wax polish. I had 2 new benches coming in next week so Maya could shoot process photos without stepping over half-finished pieces. That's when Dad called. Not a text, not an email with spreadsheets. A real call. "Ben," he said, voice tighter than usual. "We've got a problem." The charity event planner just backed out. 2 weeks before the gala. When she quit, she took the auction slate and vendor contacts with her, so we're rebuilding the program from scratch. "Your mother's beside herself." I waited. He cleared his throat. "Your grandmother suggested we feature some of your pieces." Center displays. Maybe a small auction. People know your name now after that magazine thing. I could picture Grandma pushing that through like a queen moving chess pieces, ignoring every excuse. Dad kept going. It would really help us out. You'd get exposure too. Win-win. I'll consign a few pieces for the auction, I said. But everything needs QR codes and card readers on the tables. Auction items get reserve prices. And I want the terms in writing. A pause. Then, of course. 2 weeks later, I showed up at the venue with 3 display cases and a folder of paperwork signed by both of us. Mom greeted me near the door, face polite but stiff like she'd bitten into a lemon. "Thank you for doing this," she said. "Happy to help," I said, and meant it. Tables draped in white filled the room. Someone had set small spotlights over the displays. My pieces sat under glass. The silver cufflinks, the pendants, the bracelets with inlaid stones. Each had a card with my logo, short description, starting bid price, and a little QR code linking to the website. Guests started filtering in. First couple stopped to look at a bracelet, asked what the metal was. I told them, sterling silver, hand-cut, polished in-house. No big pitch, just facts. Another guest asked how long I'd been in business. I said 5 years. She raised her eyebrows, said she'd seen my name in the Oak and Stone catalog. Grandma appeared out of nowhere, slipped her arm through mine. "I told them you were the only sensible one in this family," she whispered, eyes sharp like she enjoyed watching everyone notice what they'd missed. She didn't leave my side until the first auction bid went up. During the announcements, Dad read the item list slowly, like he wanted every syllable right. My pieces sold steadily. Nothing ridiculous, but solid bids, enough to raise good money for their cause and still hit the reserves I'd set. Nobody called them hobbies tonight. Mark found me near the back after the auction ended. He nodded toward the display cases. "You know half the board members asked for your website?" "Good," I said. He stuck his hands in his pockets, then added, "This is Ben, my brother," when someone from his firm walked up. "The guy whose line sold out 3 times this quarter. Not trinkets, not hobby, just the facts. Small thing, but it landed. I didn't stay long after the auction wrapped. Packed the unsold pieces in their cases, signed the settlement sheet, left the charity's share with the committee, and picked up my check for the remainder, then told Mom I had orders to fill in the morning. She nodded like she couldn't decide whether to argue or thank me, so she didn't do either. Grandma hugged me on the way out. "Don't let them rope you into more than you want," she said. "Boundaries, Benjamin." "Working on it," I said. Back at the workshop later that night, I set the cases on the bench, opened each one, checked every piece, wiped fingerprints off the glass lids before stacking them by the door for tomorrow's courier pickup. The space smelled like metal polish and sawdust from Eli cutting new display boards earlier that week. Calendar still full on the wall. Laptop pinging with another Oak and Stone reorder request. I shut it instead of answering right away. For a while, I just worked. The hours bled out. The windows went from black to gray without me noticing. I turned off the lights except for the one over the main bench. Finished pieces sat on a tray in the center, catching the first pale light of morning through the windows. No speeches, no big lesson. Just work waiting for me tomorrow. And that was enough. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.